All right. So welcome. Hi guys, how are you? Nice
Right?
to see you today. This beautiful Thursday here in California. We have like summer weather.
It's beautiful.
So welcome everybody to today's CyberWise chat. I'm Diana Graber. I'm the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and founder of CyberWise and CyberCivics. Here as always with Dr. Pamela Rutledge, who's the director of the Media Psychology Research Center. Also here is CJ Lindsay. He is our resident children's media expert and producer of our new podcast. He'll be here fielding your questions today. So he's got a bunch already. If you would like to add more questions as we go along, please put them in the chat box. As you know, today we're going to be talking about kids, war, and TikTok. We'll be describing what kids are watching on their currently favorite app, how it may be affecting their well-being, how much of this content is misinformation or disinformation, and what parents can do about it. But first, I'd like to kick us off, Pam. I hope this is okay with you. I'm going to read a short excerpt out of a really wonderful blog post you wrote, I think 2 weeks ago for Psychology Today. This really sets the stage for what we're going to be talking about. So TikTok is full of raw, gritty videos of people crying in windowless shelters and explosions demolishing entire buildings. Ukrainian influencers are abandoning fashion and beauty to document the damage they see now. As we would expect on TikTok, the content is emphasized with captions, overlays, and animations to make the meaning clear. Soldiers upload videos from the front line dancing to rock music against the stark realities of war. Unlike Instagram, TikTok's algorithm delivers trending content based on preferences and views, not followers, making it easier for war videos to go viral quickly. So we're going to talk about all that today. And CJ, I'm going to go to you. What do you have for us?
Yeah, let's start with just kind of a general, like, what is TikTok, how it works, kind of give us a groundwork first.
All right, I'll let you take that, Pam.
Well, TikTok is a relatively new application that has just exploded, especially during the pandemic, because it really encourages people to create short videos, share their point of view. It's become very popular with young kids. Obviously, I think 180% growth during COVID. The average age is very young, although we're hearing more and more millennials are migrating over to TikTok. So the length of the video is contained, but it feels like a very sort of random pool, but you can find anything. You just search and swipe and carry on. So it allows for both recorded and live videos. And it feels very authentic and very real compared to what people are used to seeing now with the sort of posed Instagram. So I think a part of that appeal is that it increased that sense of social connection during the COVID.
Yeah, and a couple tidbits of information that I think is really interesting is I read somewhere that kids between 4, which breaks my heart, and 15 now spend an average of 80 minutes a day on TikTok. And part of that is just so engaging, yet video after video is fed to you based on your preferences. The other thing that's made it really popular right now during your Ukraine war is this feature that they can do live video, and that's really appealing to people who want to share their stories. And whereas it really started out as this lip syncing fun dance app, it has changed so much. There is so much information on the app. There's a lot of influencers. There's a lot of fashion tips. So we covered earlier this year, TikTok challenges. That's very popular. So really used for a lot of different purposes. I think that if you have a child at all interested in TikTok, you need to go on it yourself to see what it's all about. There's nothing better than experiencing it to understand what it does.
Yeah, and sharing that experience.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's one of the reasons that TikTok is as successful as it is the algorithm. Can you give us a little bit of information on how that works?
Well, if we had the answer to that, we'd be really smart, because a lot of
and rich.
Yeah, we'd be rich too, because that's the thing. Okay, first of all, it's a Chinese-owned company, and a lot of people really don't understand how the algorithm works exactly. But in a basic sense, first of all, an algorithm, it's not a big scary thing. It's just a set of instructions. And the set of instructions on TikTok is designed to serve content based on what it thinks you like. So there's a couple ways it does this. Super different from the other apps. It's not based on follower count or whether you had high performing videos. So kind of the main feature in TikTok is the For You page. When you open up the app, it's going to give you videos that thinks you like. based on your preferences and what you watched before, and also based on what are the most popular videos. It's an interesting thing. I have TikTok. I look at it a lot. I don't think the algorithm knows me at all because I don't know why it gives me what it gives me. But I think maybe I don't use it as much as, those numbers I just told you about, where with a child, they'd be looking at, how long they spend with a particular video, what other kind of content they're looking at, what things they like, etc. Did I miss anything?
Well, no, I was just going to say that the one thing that's really different about the use you describe, and I'm similar, is and kids is that kids are very curious.
Yes.
So I might be going on there and I'm going, I don't like that, I don't like that, and kids are going, oh, what is that? And they're looking for things that their friends talked about, and so they're really deep diving in all kinds of different ways. And because TikTok responds to that, it serves up all kinds of things, which means that you don't really know where your kid's going to end up, because you don't know what they're searching for, or how they're all linked together.
And I think kids like that because you don't know what you're going to get next. So it's kind of exciting to see what it's going to feed you.
Easter egg hunt.
There's a couple really good articles, and perhaps CJ will have a minute to put it in the chat box. But recent Wall Street Journal report demonstrated how TikTok relies heavily on how much time you spend watching each video to steer you toward more videos that will keep you scrolling. They think this is what makes some kids fall down a rabbit hole of misinformation. Another great article in the New York Times says, in the pursuit of the company's ultimate goal of adding daily active users, which is really the pursuit of all these social media companies, they chose to optimize for two things: retention and time spent. So really all these apps, they make money by eyeballs. So they're really working on these algorithms to feed viewers what they think we want in order to keep us engaged. And with kids, it's working.
Yeah, and I think that's where what you do with cyber civics is so powerful, because by explaining the algorithm, you can let kids understand how much of what their behavior is part of what they're seeing and part of that algorithm. And that's incredibly empowering.
You know what? And kids hate to be duped. Like once they get behind the screen, like the Oz behind the screen, they're like, you know what? I want control. I want to be the determination of my destiny, even online. And so it really gives kids a sense of empowerment to understand how algorithms work, how to curate your feeds, how to decide what content is feeding you the information you actually want. So I love turning kids on to all that.
Wonderful. I just want to add that I had in my profession, I try and get kids to watch certain things, and I have that if I try and be like clever and kind of like, hey, with my language, they just go, no, yeah. I don't want to be duped. I don't want to be marketed to. I'm the determinant of my own destiny.
Yeah.
All right. Next question, kind of the meat of kind of what we're talking about here is where do kids get their news, and what type of news are they seeing on TikTok specifically?
Well, we've been seeing numbers that at least half of teenagers are getting news on social media, and TikTok is one of the biggest maps being used. So it's no surprise that they're seeing the war on TikTok. And I think what's really remarkable about TikTok, good or bad, is that it's very immediate. It's real time. So if you wanted to know about the Ukraine invasion, then you would go and see real-time events. You don't have to wait for it to be curated by the news. You also see it created by people who are talking the same language. And what I mean is they're talking kid talk. They break it down, they make it very simple. They, tell you what's good. They make fun of, currently they're busy making fun of Putin. I can't remember what they call it. You mentioned it the other day.
Flatty Daddy.
Flatty Daddy, that's right. So they're talking about it like this, but they're still creating a narrative about what's going on overseas. And so it's that translation that makes it very powerful.
Yeah, they really do have their insider language. And I'm so lucky that I still teach cyber civics because I get to hear it every day. In fact, I heard the word "stan" being used a lot in a little game I played with the kids just yesterday. And I wanted to share that about Flatty Daddy because I read kids online took an unorthodox approach to calling for peace, flooding Vladimir Putin's Stan account. So those of you who don't know what that means, it means a stalker account, which is funny because I hear he doesn't use social media. But anyway, they went onto Instagram and TikTok with comments attempting to seduce the leader out of war. Things like, Vladdy Daddy, please no war. Or I'll give you $5 and a foot rub if you don't start another war, Vladdy Daddy. So as weird as it sounds, that hashtag Vladdy Daddy had 45.5 million views on TikTok on Thursday, while searches for terms such as World War III increased sixfold since Wednesday. So again, insider stuff. This is what the kids, they're curious. You know, they hear us talking about this horrible war and they're turning to the places where they spend most of their time to learn more about it. But Pam, maybe you can explain why this is a weird place, in my view anyway, to go for news.
Well, it's a weird place to go for news because you don't know what kind of news that you're getting. But at the same time, it's crafting a clear narrative. And the thing about a short form content is that you very quickly decide who's a hero and who's a villain. And there's all kinds of Zelensky edits, sort of fan cams of Zelensky promoting him as the hero. But it's also showing you some real hardship in a way that you don't see on the news. So a lot of these kids have been following influencers who have been showing makeup or fashion, and now they're seeing that same person who's very real to them in a bomb shelter. And even though it's made up to match a TikTok challenge, it's very, it creates a certain amount of empathy for people that would not happen otherwise. Why do they get it there? Because it's short and it's entertaining and you can move through it quickly.
And it's creative. I mean, the producers who are making this stuff use all the tools that TikTok offers, the little animations and captions and hashtags, and music is a big part of it. And for me, that's what's so jarring. This morning I spent quite a lot of time, embarrassingly, going through TikTok. I'm like a 12-year-old here, going through TikTok to just looking at the war footage. And it's just weird because you see somebody, I mean, honestly, folks, like there's dead bodies and stuff set to current music. And that's what a lot of kids will use, current music, because it helps them get more viewers, evidently. It's just like you don't know how to feel. Like you see such a depressing image. And then here's an example this morning. It was a soldier that had evidently just shot down a Russian helicopter, and he was dancing like to some happy music. So how do you feel about that? It's hard to contextualize it. And again, I always go back to I think where we've come from. Like in the old days, our news was delivered on the television in the living room by Walter Cronkite, who, had editors vet it, and we all talked about it. And we have slowly come from that to now news that there's no editors, no one's making sure if it's true or even real. And there are kids alone in their bedrooms watching it without mom or dad. They're explaining what's going on. So we've come a long way, really.
Well, the fact that the White House invited a handful of TikTok influencers to brief them on the Ukraine invasion shows you how powerful this application is for creating an understanding about what's going on out there. Right. So it's really defining the process. And I think it's important for all of us to remember, especially when we're sucked into some, a TikTok video, is that our brain is predisposed to look for movement, to look for new things. And there are those videos, flip, flip, flip. It's our brain's hardwired to look for things that are unusual or scary, because that's how we are kept safe. The other thing is that the brain processes information of videos and pictures 60,000 times faster than text. Think about how much information is in 10 seconds of a video. I mean, it's really remarkable. It would take you 3 pages to write down everything that you could learn from a video like that. So I think that makes it incredibly powerful. But I also want to suggest that the pop music and some of the humor allows us to have some distance and process a very difficult thing. So while some people interpret that as making fun or making light, it's a little bit like humor allows us to think about things that are very hard and try and put them in context so that we can actually process them rather than ignore them.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And that kind of brings us to the next question, I think, that CJ's got lined up here.
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw it to a question that we just received, which kind of falls into line with what you're talking about, which is, can you speak to the desensitization speak to the desensitization based on the violence and damage from a PTSD standpoint, as well as the misinformation. So let's break it into two parts and talk about the what kids are watching, how it may affect them, and what they're experiencing when they see these images.
Yeah, I'm going to let Pam talk to that psychologically, but I'm going to give you a real world example first. Last week, I think it was, I was in one of the classes, I was giving my sixth graders a test on cyberbullying. And I told them that they could refer to their notes to do the test. So this one boy in the front row, he said, I am way too tired to walk to my cubby to get my notes. I'm like, why are you so tired? He said, I was up till 1 o'clock watching TikTok. And I said, well, what were you watching that kept you so engaged? He goes, I saw this little boy and he was leaving Ukraine all by himself and he was crying. And it made me so depressed, I couldn't fall asleep. So yeah, can't make this stuff up, folks. And I've seen that video since. It is just, I challenge you to watch it and try to fall asleep yourself because it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And I think before everyone gets all anxious, right, we need to understand that people respond to things differently, right? And that's true of children as well. However, children don't have the ability to separate fact from fantasy. So they have a hard time understanding what they're seeing. So they may misinterpret it and take it all as a joke, or they may become very anxious and worry that we're going into World War III. I had one child who wanted to know if we should build a bomb shelter because there might be nuclear war. So they don't really know how to explain what's going on in terms of their own worldview. But let me step back a second and explain secondary trauma, or PTSD, is, and it's PTSD is something that happens to you directly. So we're talking about here secondary trauma, where you witness something that someone else is going through, or you hear something and it sticks with you, just as Diana was describing with her student. And it becomes sort of reoccurring and ruminating, so that it triggers all kinds of negative emotions, and can be, those same things can come up again when another similar event happens. The best protection for PTSD, secondary trauma, when you're talking about kids seeing this kind of violence in the media, and the Ukraine war is not the first violence on media that we've seen, just to point out here, but is to, first of all, make sure that they have critical thinking. We talk about that all the time. The other is to prepare them, make sure that they know they're going to be seeing some hard stuff so they can choose. Because if they're taken by surprise, it's much more jarring than if you prepared them ahead of time. And the other thing you can do is you can help a child build resilience. And this isn't just for violent videos, this is for getting through school and, success in life, but it's helping them build on their own strengths so that they feel that they've got some power and empowerment to turn off the video, and so that they have solutions in their toolbox of how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You want me to talk about desensitization, or you want to?
I was going to say just really quick too, it's so important to consider where kids are age-wise. When I read that research that kids as young as 4 are spending that kind of time on TikTok, young kids have a really hard time distinguishing reality from fantasy. And so they're looking at this stuff, not able to make any sense out of it whatsoever. So, I mean, gosh, there's so many other good reasons to keep kids under 13 from using this app. This is just a great reason. They're just not ready for the disturbing. I'm disturbed by what I see on there. And I know that for a young child, that must be very unsettling or confusing.
All right. And I think that's a challenge for parents, because TikTok is very well known and it's very popular under age 13. I would say from 8, 9, when they start getting, their social antenna up to 13, that it becomes sort of a destination resort. And the more they're not supposed to do it, the more fun it seems. So I think it's, engaging with your kid and watching what they're watching. But I want to talk a little bit about desensitization to violence. This has been a huge debate in psychology since we started having mass media, right? And there are people on both sides and they're arguing, but the evidence suggests that there really isn't long-term desensitization to violence in things like violent video games, like we all used to worry about. but individual differences matter. So children who are predisposed to, aggression or predisposed to those kinds of behaviors may be more vulnerable to that kind of desensitization. But it's important to put these things in context for your kids and talk about them to bring that sort of into reality. Is this what you think people should do? What does this mean to you? So that you can have those conversations so that you can understand where their brain is taking this idea. But, in general, the research is so varied and how they're measuring violence differs so much. You really can't draw a standard conclusion.
Yeah, and honestly, scrolling through it, it has the feel of a video game because so many of these images are similar to video game images, and some of the audio is taken from video games, so it's very confusing. So again, your advice is so spot on, Pam. I mean, spend some time scrolling through it with your child. If this is where they're getting their news about a major world event, it's a great opportunity for you to see how they're getting it. It's interesting. And then to talk to them about it. And I know we're going to talk about misinformation in a minute. That's a really big part of this puzzle.
Yeah, so let's jump to the second part of that question, which is misinformation, and then also let's talk about disinformation and like what's the difference and why it's important to know the difference. And yeah, let's go to that part.
You know what, CJ, if it's okay, I'm going to back up just a tad because I see the second part of that question was about the influencers, and that's a really important question. I don't know if any of you are Saturday Night Live watchers like I am, but they did a funny skit a few weeks back about the White House inviting all these TikTok stars that were like 10 years old to the White House to brief them on the war so they could go back and tell their followers all about it. I thought it was made up, but lo and behold, it really did happen. The White House invited TikTok influencers, briefed them on the war, and then those kids went out and gave them, actual fact-checked information, which I think was really smart because, it's finally, we've got like this kind of direct link to actual information. So that kind of sets the stage. I think it was Amy had a question if they're hired by the White House. I do not know that. My belief was they actually invited some of the top influencers to deliver this.
Yeah, and they'll get paid inadvertently anyway, just through popularity. But it was very interesting watching a couple of the videos from some of these kids and how they were actually going through what they had heard and they were questioning it. And they were saying, well, they said this about this, but what about this here at home? So they're actually doing some thinking. So I want to make sure people don't think that all of this stuff on TikTok is goofy or trash. Yeah. There's some very thoughtful dialogues going on, but that's sort of mixed in with shearing sheep and, dancing and, challenges.
And that's part of media literacy is teaching your kids to be very thoughtful about who they follow and what they watch in order to curate their feeds in such a way that it gives them what they actually want. And we'll talk about this in a minute. There's some people that I follow, kids that are doing a really good job teaching other kids about misinformation. And so I'll give you that info in just a moment. Maybe you can encourage your own kids to follow these people. All right, CJ, what's next?
Yeah, so let's talk about misinformation and disinformation and what's the difference.
So I pulled some very easy definitions there because they're very different. So disinformation, it's false information deliberately and often covertly spread, which we've heard Russia is doing in regards to this war and has done in the past. Misinformation is incorrect or misleading information presented as fact, either intentionally or unintentionally. So they're both harmful, I think, but it's really important to understand the difference between the two and to understand a lot of this is happening on TikTok. There's a lot of footage that's old footage that didn't happen now. There's a lot of footage cut with audio that is not the actual audio that goes with the footage. There's things that are just completely from left field. Why would people do this? Well, again, part of the allure of using TikTok is you want to get as many people like watching your stuff as possible. So you might augment stuff that you have with better audio, with more engaging footage. So a lot of this misinformation is done for that reason. Did I miss anything there, Pam?
No, I don't think so. I mean, one example is a video that got hundreds of thousands of views that turned out to be taken from a video game of with everyone was saying, oh, here's the Russian missile, and it turned out it came from a video game. So it's, that kind of critical thinking is really essential when you're trying to make sense out of news on an app like this.
Right. And I wanted to share a little bit of research done by NewsGuard, which is a journalism and technology tool that rates the credibility of news and information on websites and tracks misinformation. Their research showed that TikTok is feeding false and misleading content about the war in Ukraine to users within 40 minutes of their signing up to the app, regardless of whether they run any searches on the platform. Moreover, they found that searching for generic terms related to the conflict like Ukraine, Donbass, led to TikTok suggesting multiple videos that contain disinformation in its top 20 results. So this is important because TikTok doesn't really help you verify if something's false or true. So boy, there's so many ways that you can help kids to do this. Number one, make sure your schools are teaching media literacy. I know when we cover fake news, misinformation, it's a year-long course because there's so many things to talk about. At the very, very minimum, when you're a child and you are watching the video together and you wonder if it's true, look to see who the author is. Look that person up. Is it a credible person? Is it somebody just that you've never heard of before? You've got to check your source and make sure it's a verifiable source. And then I told you I was going to share some really great people that I love for kids to follow. Abby Richards is like a one-person misinformation fighting machine. She's great. She's got like 500,000 followers and all this, but she explains misinformation to kids in a way they can understand it. Abby Richards is her name. The second one is a site called, or something called Verify This. They have 22.8 thousand followers, but they report on what is misinformation on the app. So, and the other thing too, if you find something with your child, if they find something that's not true or misinformation on the app, they can report it to TikTok. And that's important to do because think about how that app works. You record something, you hit a button, it's on instantaneously. The best moderators and the best algorithms in the world cannot catch up with instantaneous content. So we have to give it some help. This really empowers kids to know how to do this. But if they find something that's not true, they can report it. And that's a great way for them to engage with the media that they're using and to feel a sense of empowerment.
Yeah, I think that's really important, especially when kids are getting information from an influencer, which is going to be someone that they inherently trust because, they like them or they've been following them. And I would suggest to parents, don't hesitate to ask your kids, well, let's see where else we can find that news. Is it on, the New York Times website? Is it in Google? So that they start understanding that these days, we all have to triangulate information. We can't take really anything at face value when it's coming across social media channels.
That fast, I know. It's coming at us fast and furious. And again, kids are, all of us will tend to watch the things that are most engaging, as Pam described earlier. And sometimes that stuff is not the most true stuff. And remember too, for children, that critical thinking takes a long time to develop. There was another study done by UNICEF that found up to 75% of children feel unable to judge the accuracy of information they find online. This was especially true for children in the 9 to 11 and 12 to 14-year-old age groups, the same age group beginning to use social media. So they need our help understanding how to decipher fake news. We also, on our website, we have a great fake news video that you're welcome to share with your kids. CJ, I don't know if I sent you the link to it. I don't remember if I did or not, but you can find it on the CyberWise YouTube page. We have all of our student videos posted there. Welcome to scroll through there, but there's one specifically on fake news.
Wonderful. So let me ask so that there's kind of a lot of doom and gloom. So let's talk about what are the upsides of TikTok, kind of more the positive side of it.
The positive side. Well, one of the upsides of TikTok and all kinds of social media is that kids are using them, right? Which we all know, which means they are more aware of the global environment and their role as a member of a larger community than just their neighborhood or just their school. So that's a very positive thing. The other thing that's really good about videos is that it increases empathy because the videos show real people doing real things. And in many cases, there are videos giving them ideas about how to get involved and how to make a difference. Not so much on the war, but on things like global warming and, recycling and, all of those kinds of social issues. There's a lot of information that's really pretty inspiring for kids and gives them good ideas. So I think it's important to remember that nothing is all bad. It's a question of your diet and how much of what you're eating.
Yeah, and I think the creativity aspect is not to be scoffed at. I mean, kids are really creatively using these tools. And the fact that they are interested in current events, and I see the empathy firsthand. It's lovely to see kids know that this is not some, war. What does that mean? But to see that there's actual people being impacted by that and maybe encouraging their parents to donate or to get involved in some manner. I mean, that's all good stuff.
Yeah, no, right when it first started, one of the kids came home and said, "Hey, we could rent a Ukraine house on Airbnb to give somebody in Ukraine, some revenue. With we aren't going to show up, but that way they get the money." So there were all kinds of creative ideas circulating, I think, that are really important. And the worst thing a parent can do is say, "Oh, that's TikTok. That means it's stupid and dumb, and that information's no good," because you will cut your conversation off. And what you're really hoping to do is open conversations all the time so that you can discuss what's meaningful to them and put it in the context of your own values and knowledge.
Right, because this stuff isn't going away. No matter what we say to you here in this little time we have together is not going to change the amount of time kids spend with TikTok, but it might change the way you help your kids use TikTok.
Lovely. So two last questions. One's a quick one that we just received. It says, "This is such a powerful discussion. Do you offer content or presentations we can receive to hold parent educational lunches and learns for our communities?"
Oh, well, CJ, you can answer that question. Where can you find all these talks?
Yes. Well, first of all, this is now a podcast. So anything that we've talked about in the past, you can listen to at any time. And then all of the CyberWise websites and the Cyber Civics website as well also have just loads of information. Something that actually brought me into this whole CyberWise group is the amount of just free information that Diana and team put out there. It's all on the website. You can grab anything you want. And there's also, if you are looking for at-home discussions, there is a Cyber Civics at home curriculum that you can purchase to share with your family, as well as small. It works really well for small communities, and I will share that link in a second. But I want to ask the last question so we can get.
I'll just say one more thing. I know I'm great.
Yeah, go ahead.
We do offer parent presentations through CyberWise. You're welcome to reach out, and I can tell you more about that.
Great. And then the last question is, what are your top tips for parents in kind of handling all of this?
I know you got a long one, Pam. I'll let you go first.
Well, no, I mean, the first one is talk often, talk always. In other words, start these conversations about technology, all kinds of ways. If you see something in the news, use that as a teaching moment to reflect back on what it means in social media, so that there's all kinds of ways that you can establish a bond of trust, because that's what you need. Because when they have a question or when something goes amiss, you need them to trust you. And the other thing that I'll just focus on, and then I'll turn it over to you, Diana, is that in the case of violence in media, and especially during the Ukraine war, really focus on preparation and resilience, because that's really going to keep the child from being upset for more than in any kind of long-term way, because that's so important. And it will, resilience, self-regulation, all those things are the biggest determinants of life success, not just surviving TikTok, that you can do. So I would say lean into that.
Yeah, those are great tips. And just to add on to that, as I said before, get to know TikTok yourself. I mean, this is important for every adult to do, I think, to understand, where content is coming from today. And then, help your children understand that they can curate their feeds. They can be deciding for themselves what they want to watch. Of course, as I always say, we should be teaching this stuff in school. Please check out Cyber Civics. Know that your kids are old enough to use the app is an important one. Know they can report distressing misinformation. And here's a big one for parents. You might have noticed that all these apps are starting to add more parental controls. TikTok has some very good ones, so you should check them out. Not so great in the content area, but screen time and all that they offer. But the reason they're adding these parental controls is because finally they're getting pressured to do so. So please remember that when you give your children's eyeballs to TikTok, you're giving them a valuable commodity. They deserve, you are their client. So speak up, let Congress know, let TikTok know directly what you want and what you expect to be changed. So you can do that by reporting things, by making your voice heard. So, and again, you're showing your kids how to be like a productive participant in our media culture. So super important to do that. Oh,
wonderful.
I have something, one more thing.
Yeah.
So CJ, he's very shy. He's not going to tell you this himself, but he actually has a very important role. He's the content manager of kids programming for HBO Max. He is going to launch what I am super excited about is another part to the Cyberwise Chats, another podcast that will talk more about what kids are actually watching. He's going to tell you about it in just a moment, but this is really for our families that are struggling with actually what our kids are watching, not just on their apps, but also on television. So CJ, take it away.
Yeah, so kind of my background coming from HBO Max is I've worked with some of the largest entertainment brands for kids media, and so I came into Cyberwise to kind of try and be the streaming, the kids content streaming person. And with that, I found that there's a lot of questions about what kids are watching. So I'm going to start a Cyberwise podcast that's a parent's guide to what kids watch, where we kind of dive more into the more nuanced potential effects of the media that your kids are mostly streaming with so much content out there. There's so many things. And it's something that I wish I had growing up, and something that I know my parents wish they had for me growing up. And so we will dive into not so much the kind of the basic rating system, but more of like the emotional kind of effects that some of this media can have, relationships with authority figures and empathy and self-confidence and that kind of thing, to talk about all of the media that your kids can potentially watch, and the good and potentially some of the other consequences that can come from it. So look forward to that.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're very excited about that. So thank you, CJ. And thank you, Pam. And next time we are going to talk about screen time. Have to do it. But hopefully we'll come at it at a completely different angle. And we have two very interesting and exciting guests that we'll announce shortly. But thank you all so much for joining us today. Hope to see you next month. Thank you both, Pam and CJ. And as you know, you can always find this on our Cyberwise chat page on our website, and also in our new podcast available on all the podcast platforms out there. So just look for Cyberwise Chats. Have I forgotten anything? Are we good? All right, guys. Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.